with Kakos and capturing the second saint. Matthias felt his other brow rise, both now inching toward his slicked-back silver hair. A dead monarch was no small thing, yet he could hardly focus on that, not with Dobbins's second piece of information. And what zealot shared this news with you? Because truly, only the most devout would believe a saint walked among them. He knew of the prophecy. Utter hogwash. Dobbins shook his head. They say the news came from Zuri, the king's advisor. Matthias barely contained his snort. A brilliant alibi, no doubt spun from Trahir to paint the rest of the court as innocents to avoid the wrath of the realm once news of their king's treason broke. And Gianna will let them prey on her piousness, Matthias thought. Dobbins continued to prattle on about which brothel he'd been in when he'd heard the gossip in the early hours of the morning, but Matthias's mind was already spinning toward plans of his own. Strings he could pull, deals he could make, people he could exploit. Political upheaval was a prime time to reap reward if one was prepared for it. The general has been released, Dobbins was saying. That caught Matthias's attention. Tova had been arrested months ago under suspicion of treason. She was reportedly found with orders for weapons, orders from the 2 tradesmen in Trahir who were killed for buying on behalf of Kakos. Such acts were illegal after an embargo had been placed on the ostracized southern kingdom for their experimentation with dark magic. They say she was framed by Kakos, Dobbins continued. Means the supplier is still out there. Interesting, ain't it? Matthias rubbed a hand across his jaw as he watched the Daimonyara. Interesting indeed. He'd never quite known what to make of the decades-old suspicions that Kakos wanted to resurrect the Decachire, the forbidden practice that had Vizia reaching to be gods by making their power limitless. It had supposedly been abolished by the war and outlawed by the gods. But the Daimonyara had captured a dark magic practitioner in Tala just months ago. Adaya Ferrate, the realm called them, a Vizia who had siphoned magic from another to create corrupted raw power. They were found just after the Trahir tradesmen were caught trying to buy weapons for the southern kingdom. Matthias hadn't become the most notorious crook without learning how to watch for signs. Even he couldn't ignore how everything was pointing toward Kakos preparing for war. And with the supplier still on the loose, perhaps they'd gotten their weapons after all. Does anyone know who it is, this presumed saint? The word sounded like the butt of a horribly poor joke. They say it's Gianna's third. Matthias couldn't contain his scorn now. Now I know this is no more than gambling gossip. There's no way the gods would choose that. Matthias didn't even have the words to describe what the spymaster was. A pain in his ass would be a good start. He'd had enough interactions with the young spymaster's vitriol to know the woman was no saint. Her dagger had found enough precious parts of his body to prove it. Dobbins shrugged. Just what they're saying, boss. Apparently, the general took the fall for her first display of power. Was protecting her, she was. Either way, I imagine the queen will get to the bottom of it all. The saint and such. Quite dedicated to the faith, she is. Matthias muttered a non-committal sound. The entire bloody kingdom was dedicated to the gods. Even Matthias made it a point to attend the key services in the town's main temple. Of course, the blessings he sought weren't from any deities, but from the patrons whose secrets he could trade as easily as the delicacies from Trahir. Matthias rolled his shoulders back as he tore his gaze away from the warriors.